Welcome here. Another episode of Hard to Guard TV, and I am here with. Oh man, I don't even know how to say it. She's an icon to me. She is a power broker in this industry. She's a brand marketer. She is. I have worked with her. She is, as I like to say, a bulldog. Don't mess with her. She gets things done. Aria Wright. What's up, Aria?
Hi, Edgar. My friend Edgar, boy.
You go by many names, Aria. You know what I'm saying? You make things happen. She's the make it happen. If you want something done, call Aria. It will get done somehow, some way. She will make the phone calls. She will make it happen.
Somehow, some way, get it done. Just get her done.
Brand marketer.
Yes.
And I like to say, what made you get into marketing?
Well, I've always loved people. I think growing up, I grew up in Philadelphia. And my father's a musician and we moved around a lot. So when I kind of settled in Philadelphia, I didn't really fit in, and I always was the person from the outside looking at people who had been together for years. I think we moved to Philly when I was in like third grade. And it was just a really rough time for me, all those years of being an outsider. But I always loved the camaraderie when I saw people. And actually my neighbors that lived to the right of me, to my mother's house, had two daughters. One was my age and one was my sister's age. But the mother, Christine Graves, she was amazing. And I loved her and I loved watching her because she always used to entertain. She always had people around her. She was the life of the party. So I always admired and looked up to her. So she's the person that really got me to like people and love to be around people. And I guess when I went to college, I went to Temple University, shout out TUMF. Went to Temple and when I got there, I was like, okay, it's no brainer. I want to go into marketing because I saw how it connected people. And, regardless of what industry, it always found a way to bring people back to center and to always be that thread. Like marketing was always that thread that kept people together. And I saw how excited people got when they were, enticed by different brands. And I saw how excited people were when they actually got something that they really liked and they wanted to talk about it. And this was definitely before social media. So it was always word of mouth, the cup and string, the fax machine, all of that. So, I mean, it just was a natural. I just love people. I connect people in real life. I do that as well with my friends. I'm the friend connector. I'm the person that gathers everybody. And I host a lot of events at my house. And I'm always looking to find ways that people can just be entertained. And a lot of times I'm the center of the entertainment too, because I like to be funny and fun.
So you go to Temple. How did Temple shape you?
Wow. Well, I worked full-time. I worked a full-time job when I was at Temple. I lived off campus and Temple actually wasn't my first school. I'm going to share a little secret. So my very first school was James Madison University. And I went there and I did absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And it showed. So my mother was like, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to pay all that money for you to be down here acting a fool. So you're going to bring your behind home and you're going to go to Temple and you're going to like it. So being at Temple, I worked full time and it was a personal choice, obviously, because I knew that I couldn't stay on campus. So I just wanted to make sure that I was getting some sort of an experience, because you go to school and you see everybody hanging out at the Student Activity Center and you can only be there part-time because they go back to their dorms and then I go home. So I wanted some experience but I definitely have created some really great and long-lasting relationships with people, good friends with people to this day that went to Temple University. And I'm going to name a couple of them. My girl, Sonia George, she's from South Carolina, where I was born, which is crazy. and she's Dr. Sonia George now, and Vicky Miles, my one of my besties in college, Renee Newville from Jeanne, still one of my road dogs, like definitely. And then so many others like Keenan Towns, who is the first person, and we'll talk about that later, but he's the first person to get me working in the liquor business. So I've met so many amazing people that I'm still super tight with. Mike Scoff, who lives around the corner from me coincidentally in Jersey, and goes to my church. So, we're still tight to this day. Shaping me is relative, it's definitely Temple helped to mold me into the person that I wanted to be, because I saw so much energy behind people and getting together and creating and forming like this really tight bond. And I wanted that for myself, but I couldn't have it because of the disconnect, obviously.
So you graduate from Temple and you say to yourself, all right, I want to stay in marketing.
Yeah.
And then you do, your first job is US Concepts.
Actually, my first job. So I actually moved. I could not wait to get out of Philly. That's the first thing. I was like, I gotta get out of here. So my sister was dating a gentleman who I love, who's still here in Brooklyn, and he was working at NBC News. And I was like, look, if you can get me a job, I will move tomorrow. So he ended up getting me a job at NBC News. I worked in electronic journalism. This was way before anything like this. It was so antiquated. It was so crazy. But he got me a job there. And when I worked there, I was doing like overnights and late night shifts, and I was making great money. I lived in East Flatbush, and I had a rough trek home, but my family lived there. So it was always, cool. Everybody in the neighborhood kind of knew me, but they knew me as Daryl's younger cousin and, Steve's younger niece. So nobody messed with me. But, I ended up meeting a good friend of mine, who is now like one of the best people in the world to me, Sincere Thompson. And he was working at Polygram at the time. And I told him, I was like, look, if you ever get an opportunity to hire someone who to help you work on one of these records, then hire me. And he got the job at Motown Records and then hired me. And I was a national promotions coordinator. I loved the job, but it was very short-lived. Our whole entire department, everybody got fired from Motown. This was under Andre Harrell's tutelage. So that was my first job, NBC. Second job was Motown Records. And then third job came when I was walking down the street after I had been fired from Motown. Thank you very much. And RIP to Andre Harrell. But walking down the street, bumped into Keenan Towns. And he, we started chopping it up. And he was like, well, what are you doing right now? And I was like, just doing some freelancing. I was doing some modeling and stuff, some print work. And he's like, come on tour with me. So he was working with Tanqueray at the time. And he was about to go on tour with Earth, Wind and Fire, for the Soul Beach Music Festival. So I went and did that with him. And it changed my life, because I literally handled everything from beginning to end. We did sponsorship activation. Basically, that was my first job, was sponsorship activation. And I set up the promotion, broke it down, and at the end, made sure that people were drinking the product, so on and so forth. So literally by the time I got back off of that tour, the company, US Concepts, third job, was ready to hire me as a key account manager. And, so when they offered me the role, it was, managing managing the promotional activity with all of the sampling models and selling in the promotions, working in the New York market for Hennessy, Grand Marnier, Tanqueray, Johnny Walker Black, Moet and Chandon, and this rum called Akumari rum. So those were and Dom Perignon. Those were my brands. And that was a great first, AKA third job to have, because I was everywhere, like Brooklyn. I met so many amazing people who I'm still cool with, who used to be in the clubs doing like for some reason I got caught up in a comedian circuit, and we were always activating at some comedy show. Joe Jackson and Ray DeJean, and I they used to have the Ray used to have the karaoke box that he would carry around with him, and it was literally like a little box and with a microphone. And so that's how he would do, introduce people, introduce comedians like Donnell Rawlings, Ashley Larry, Dave Chappelle, Tone Capone, so many other comedians that you probably know and love nowadays. But so I did that and was able to really, really sink my teeth into what event promotions look like. And that kind of catapulted my career working at US Concepts. And I think I did that for about 6 years. And then fourth job, moved.
Hold on. So what I like, one thing I've always respected is that you have no fear.
None.
And at an early age out of college, were you always like fearless? Because you're somebody that I've seen around when certain situations, you'll walk up to people, you don't know them, you'll introduce yourself. And a lot of people at a young age don't have that until later on in life. How did that happen?
I don't know. But I do know that it was nothing for me. Once I decided that I was going to take on that persona, it was nothing for me to meet people. I think that all along when I was growing up, I was always put in a situation. I was an athlete in high school, so I always had to talk to people. But you didn't necessarily have to like them. You just had to talk to them. You just had to find some sort of a friend circle to be in high school. And like I said, I never kind of fit in. So I always wanted to be that person. And I guess it kind of builds grit. It builds, stamina for you to actually be out there talking to people and working the circuit and just kind of moving in circles where you don't necessarily know anybody. So I can't say how I got it, but I got it somehow.
So what part in your life did you realize, obviously Earth, Wind and Fire, which is my favorite band of all time. Like when did you realize, like, wait, I'm in the right room with the right people? Like, when did that like hit you at any time?
I think somewhere along the year of 1990, maybe
something.
Yeah, something like that. When I realized that when I was at Motown, I worked with greatness. I worked with Eddie F. I worked with Clark Kent, Puff, Chad Elliott, Sincere Thompson, like so many amazing people. And I just knew that those were the relationships that I would be able to take with me in life, so, and I also was able to see after a number of years that I could call on those people and it was always love. It was always them answering the phone for me or just, being interested in what I had to say. So I kind of took on, I can get calls answered. A lot of people can't get calls answered. A lot of people, and then I'm a nice person, I think. I'm a nice person. It didn't hurt that, you're a nice person, you do good work, and you honor your word. Like, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And that's what I've always stood by. I've always stood by the fact that I'm not going to tell you a lie. I am not going to tell you that I can do something. That's not true. I'm going to tell you I can do something if it's almost in my wheelhouse, I can see it. But I'm not going to just flat out lie to you and say I can do it if I know I can't do it. And I don't want to put anybody's relationship at jeopardy if they recommend me for something that I can't do and I don't pull through. So that's always in my back pocket.
So you leave US Concepts and you join Strategic Group.
No.
BT. main job. Let's talk about the main jobs.
So, I mean, Edgar, I've had a million jobs. Honestly, the other day, I was sitting on one of the million Zoom calls that I had that day, and I was looking at something, and I started counting the number of brands that I've worked on, a number of companies that I worked for. I've worked on over 60 brands in my short career of 2 decades, but I've literally worked on over 60 brands. I stopped counting. So, but yeah, I moved on after US Concepts. I went to BET. I moved to DC for 2 years. Hated it. I hated DC. I don't even know why DC is here. I'm just kidding.
No,
but
I'm gonna have to edit that.
No, I mean, again, I felt like I didn't belong there. I felt like I was giving DC more than it was giving me. Good thing about DC is that I had my son there. My son was born in George Washington University Hospital, and I had a great house. And when I sold my house, I made a whole lot of money. So that was awesome. But when I was there, I let it be known that I did not really care for DC too much. And talking to Sincere one day, he was like, look, if you come back to New York, I got a job for you, because his guys were throwing stuff up in the clubs and just, not really. Well, Sincere's job at that time, he was an independent working on his own company, Frontline Marketing and Promotions. Excuse me. I actually worked with him before I moved to DC for a little bit on Erykah Badu's first album, and her first record was On and On. And that's the record that I did college radio promotions for. So I've literally done everything in the world. But Sincere said, if you come back home, I have a job for you. And I said, well, I don't think, because at the time I was married, I was like, I don't think that, my husband would be willing to come to New York, because he's a country boy. He was born in Richmond, Virginia, and lived in southern states all those years. So of course, Sincere got his ear. He was like, what? Ouch. I put a transfer in my company now. I was like, oh my God. So here I go back to New York. And crazy thing is, I moved back to New York the day of 9/11, when the World Trade got hit. Wow. Yes, that night because we had the moving company come and move everything out of our house, and moved it to New York. But then we drove up my ex-husband's electronics and stuff like that, because he was like, they're not touching my stereos and all my expensive equipment and stuff. So we were like, all right, well, we'll just we'll get out late, and we'll make it to New York in the morning at some point, and just chill. The crazy thing is, I had an event at one of the Capitol buildings in DC on 9/11. So we packed up the car. I think we got to New York at like 2:00 in the morning, went to sleep. I woke up at like 7 something, got dressed, and then went upstairs, because we were staying at Sincere's house at his compound. And they're all watching the news, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, oh, World Trade got hit. And I was like, what? And I said, okay. And I was like, all right, well, I'm about to go back to DC. I'm about to drive back to DC. And they're like, no, you're not. And I was like, why? And they said, because the Pentagon got hit too. So you're going to sit your behind right down and watch the news with us. So, I mean, just very pivotal moments in my life that things happen and made me remember for the rest of my life about, moving, transition, being able to flow fluidly, being able to pick up at the drop of a dime and just do it. Like you said, no fear.
So you work with, you start working at Frontline. You start dealing with different type of brands. At that point, and did you know what you was doing, or you because you were still, you're still young in the game, or you was just learning on the go everything you was doing?
Well, my first order of business at Frontline was to, shape up the team and create a national program, and we pitched the Martell Cognac business and won that. So that was the first thing that I did. I ran the national program for Martell Cognac, and it was, I had been in the liquor business and working on brands that were in New York based, but I had never run a national program. But I'm gonna tell you one thing, running a national program is just like running a local program, with the exception that you have more people to talk to and you have more people that are in your ear about process and procedure and things like that. But the common thread for me was do what you say you're going to do, honor your word, hire great people who are serious about their business, and just learn as you go. I definitely didn't know about running a national program, but I learned very quickly, and it was something that I just ended up enjoying doing. So after winning the Martell business and doing that for I think 2 or 3 years, we had been talking about the Seagram's Gin business, and we pitched that and won that as well. And I worked on the Seagram's Gin live tour for a couple of years as well with that, and it was just learning experience all throughout. And I worked with Frontline for I think about 9 years. So I also worked on Microsoft Business there. I worked with HBO there. I worked with so many amazing brands, while I was at Frontline. So just yes. Oh, and Queen Collection, CoverGirl Queen Collection with Queen Latifah. That was my first time sitting across from a woman who commanded the room. When I tell you Queen Latifah commands presence in a boardroom, in a room full of men and vultures, believe me when I tell you that. She is no joke. And everyone hung on to every word that she said. And it really, resonated with me because, like I said, I'm just a girl who was just trying to figure out where she wanted to go and what she wanted to do. So having examples like her and knowing and understanding that side was just really pivotal for me in my life.
That's what I would say. The value of networking for you has been what?
The value of networking has opened so many doors for me. The value of honoring your word has opened so many doors and kept them open. And when I've always found that a door may be closing or about to close, miraculously, there's been another one that's open. And sometimes you kind of get in your head about just seeing how life just happens and great things happen to people that probably don't deserve it. I mean, to be honest with you, you look at people and you're like, okay, I know much better than they do, or much more than they do. And they got this opportunity, but it wasn't my time yet. You know what I mean? It wasn't my time. It wasn't my opportunity. It was probably something that would have, not put me in a better position and catapulted me to the next position, or even elevated, my knowledge of whatever that task was. So I've definitely come to realize that in my older age.
Young. So the next step, you go to strategic and I feel like you are inspirational in putting Hennessy. Everyone knew who Hennessy was, but for me, Aria Wright was Hennessy and put Hennessy on the map. And like you said, you ran a national campaign for it, and let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, Hennessy is always going to be one of my favorite brands that I've worked on. I drank the product, I embodied it. I've met a lot of great people as a result of working on that brand, and just created a community of people that really love a product and that will do whatever it takes to make sure that the product wins. It's so funny when you look at people and you see how hard they'll go for a brand. You see it now a lot more on social media, but at the time we didn't have social media. So it was like, you really get to see people in real time respond to something as simple as getting a giveaway, like a $1.99 keychain. You know what I mean? So, but Hennessy, I had worked with them before, at US Concepts, and I had done some event management stuff for them. working, some on-premise events, which are like restaurants, clubs, and night and bars, and then some off-premise stuff, which are liquor stores, and then some private events where they created the events from ground up. So I had already established a rapport with the brand manager who came in. Her name is Kelly Walton, and she now is at the NBA, but before and previously on Under Armour. But Kelly saw in me that I was serious about what I was doing, and she tapped me and said, "Hey, we have something coming up that I think you would be perfect for. I would like for you to take exactly what you did with Martell and some of your other programs, and Seagram's Gin and some of your other programs, and put it on steroids and bring it to Hennessy." So at the time, I was writing the campaigns for what they call liquid to lips. So all of the sampling girls that you see in clubs that come up to you and they ask you if you want to try a drink, those are the programs that I worked on. And I wrote what the scripts were and how the girls would look and how they actually would act and what they actually looked like. I was Shallow Hal. I profiled the girls. I only selected girls that were 5'8" and taller. I wrote that, and I would probably be fired and sued to this day because I seriously profiled all of these women. They had to look a certain way, and they had to come with a certain height and a certain body shape. And then I created the whole look for them, like the makeup, the hair, how they would wear their hair. I worked with Kelly directly on all of that. And so that's what I was doing with that program. And so I moved into another role where I was creating a national ambassador program. And because of the relationships that I had in previous years and leading up to this role, I was able to identify people who were either on the come up or who were established as that mini celebrity in their market. So across the country, my first markets were New York, hired Clarabelle Almonte, DC, Milton Gates, Miami, Elena. I'm going to get back to Elena though. Miami hired Elena, who is about to be married, but Elena Smith. LA hired Jerry Lorenzo, who's another success story, but it has nothing to do with Hennessy, but Fear of God. And what was the other market? Chicago. I hired Jamar Eaton. So grew that program from 5 markets, and we actually opened it up to Atlanta and hired Pat Richards. So we really kind of came into this program with clearly defined goals. They were all respectively, who they were in their market. But there was one person in particular who wasn't like a radio host or, an aspire or a promoter or something like that. Her name was Elena Smith. And Elena, I actually hired when I exited the role to run the team, Team Hennessy, because she had so much tenacity, so much drive. She was so buttoned up. And I loved her work ethic. She now works for Ciroc and DeLeon, excuse me, under Ingrid Best, who I also worked hand in hand with at Hennessy. So, just really met some amazing people who I was able to groom for the role, and who also were just celebrities in their own right. They were influential on social media. All of them had in excess of like 5,000 followers at the time. And this was very early. This is literally when Instagram first hit the scene. Facebook was it was probably right after MySpace. But just really amazing people. I grew from 5 markets to 18 markets, and then we grew into a multicultural program. And then I ended up getting Moet and Chandon Nectar Rosé involved in the program with the same kind of core principles of establishing relationships, maintaining those relationships, creating event and creating communities, and really using those communities to drive the brand message and drive the brand forward. So at the end of it, I was there in that capacity for another seven years, and left at the height of the Hennessy, Hennessy selling 6 million cases and really establishing presence as the leader in the category, undefeated, non-contested, like all of that. So learned a lot about marketing in general from that role and from that team. Honestly, it was the dream team. Like, the Hennessy dream team was 2012 through 2014, 15, let's say. And then it started falling apart into what it is now. Like you said, Hennessy.
I was gonna say, but like during that time, when did you realize, like, because like I told you, I look at you as like, that's like, yo, that's Aria. You know what I'm saying? So like, when did you realize for yourself, like, you know what, I'm building all these programs. Maybe I should be doing my own thing. Because you're creating all these relationships. You created relationships all over the country. Your network, your Rolodex is crazy. And my thing is like, all these companies are coming to you because you set the foundation. And when did you say to yourself, you know what? I think I'm going to start doing my own thing.
Well, it wasn't for another couple of years, but. Just to be clear, Edgar, I started my first company in 2000, right when my son was born. So I'd always worked side projects. I've always worked a side gig. I've always had a side hustle. Nicole Cosby, Nikki Cosby?
Yeah.
She used to have this company called The Side Hustle. And I always loved that name because it kind of embodied what I thought that life should be. Like, you should always have a side hustle. Whenever I would speak on panels, I would say, one of the keys to your success in maintaining, longevity in whatever career you choose is, one, your passion, and two, the art of the side hustle and the art of, now it's called the pivot, but the art of the pivot. But I left Hennessy and Strategic Group to follow a dream that I had of working in the casino industry. That fell apart immediately. So I kind of had no choice but to look at, other opportunities out there. And I actually went to ICE Media, and I was the vice president of ICE Media. And it's a boutique, a boutique media agency that really specialized in message, content creation, message amplification, led by Leslie Hall, who's now a dear friend of mine. And I learned so much about media. And at that point, I didn't feel comfortable leading meetings about media because I was a newbie there, but they have no idea how much I learned from that team. And I'm still cool with, all of them, actually. I still talk to all of them to this day. Actually, I texted Leslie yesterday and she didn't text me back, so I'm gonna have to get on her. I just reminded me. But the fundamentals of media I were learned from ICE Media. And I felt like my boot camp was all the agency work that I had done with working with all the brands. When I first started at Strategic, I had an office in the Moet Hennessy building, I had a cubicle with the Hennessy team. So I had the ability and the great fortune to be able to sit in a lot of the meetings that where I was able to learn so much from the global teams and from the teams that are guiding the brand from France, and then working cross-functionally with all of the different partners. So I worked with media, I worked with PR very closely. I worked with the people that created the POS, the point of sale merchandise. And I had to end up creating all of that stuff and working those into the team that I was building, Team Hennessy. So all of that to say, I didn't know that I was ready to do my own thing until after I left ICE Media. And I left ICE Media and, bumped right into a role with Essence, where I was I actually worked with Essence for a few years, one with Walmart. And I led the programming for that. And, we won festival activation of the year for Walmart that year. And it was an amazing footprint. And then the next year, I want to say I worked with can't remember next year what I worked with, but then 2019, I created and led programming for their first business hub, which was the Global Black Economic Forum. So had people, worked with talent, worked with the production team, Miata and MV2V. I can't think of the name. It was MVD, Miata David's company, on producing an amazing first event there. Had and worked with Marvette to get the powerful TD Jakes there. Marvette Brito, I'm sorry, to get the powerful TD Jakes there. Jack Dorsey, owner of Twitter, Facebook. Isaiah Washington brought his champagne there, Cherubim, I think it was called. I probably mispronounced it, but worked with so many amazing people, thought leaders from across the globe who came in for that event. And I at the end of that, I was tired as hell, but I felt like that was another win for Team Aria. And, and I said, okay, I feel at this point that I can really do this on my own. So that brings me to kind of present day, 2018, my own company, doing everything on my own.
Okay, 2018, you start, your own company. Was it nerve-wracking, or do you just like, I'm going to go in guns blazing? Because you're a planner. You're very strategic on everything that you do. How did you plan on building your own company?
I was very nervous. I was very nervous. I'm still nervous because you got to chase a check. At the end of the day, the business was great when it was great, but who would have predicted COVID? Lost everything, lost all of the momentum that I, built. Pretty much sat in the house for a very long time on my mother's couch. My mother had a health scare, so I had to go and, camp out of her house for a couple months during COVID. But while I was there, this is the part you're going to like, came up with the concept to create an online dating game show for the house date. Woo! With my good friend Edgar Virgo, co-executive producer. So
we need a lot more people, man.
We need a lot more people. But that was one of the first kind of creative things, because I kept hearing people talking about, if you don't come out of COVID a better person, and I don't know what you were doing, and so on and so forth. And you kind of get clobbered by the noise. But I think I was just so used to running. I didn't have time to think about what it is that I actually wanted to do, and how I wanted to get there, how I wanted to do it. So sitting on my mom's couch and being there and taking care of her, she actually really was taking care of me, because it gave me time to think, and it gave me time to really strategize and think about what I actually wanted to do when I grow up, because I had been spinning my wheels for so long. That show and working with those people that we worked with to get on the show and get it up and running. I wrote scripts. I reached out to talent. I wrangled talent. I wrote the whole treatment for the show and really did screen people, did questionnaires, just pulled together the concept from all the shows that I loved in the past. And, it came to life, and it was a beautiful thing. And I'm so proud of that work. And I thank you, Edgar, for being my partner on that and helping, that vision come to life, because I definitely couldn't have done it without you. But it definitely showed me that this is what I want to do. I want to create. I want to work with brands. I want to work with people. I want to continue doing great work and producing a great product that makes people feel good. So, I've been talking to a few people who were just like, okay, well, we're still not open yet. We're still not doing this. This is on hiatus. And I saw so many people getting furloughed and, just let go. And it was just disheartening for quite a while. But all of a sudden, I think like November, I started getting calls about 2021. And I just started answering those calls and writing decks and really just becoming, I guess, bringing out a creative side of me that I didn't even know existed and honing in specifically on what it was that I love so much about this marketing game and working with people and working with brands and building brands and connecting people and connecting brands and being a partner and being a leader of an agency and being the front person, like all those things. I bought all.
I definitely, okay, what was shocking what you said was that you were surprised that you were such a creator when all you've done your whole life was create, but you created for other people and companies. And like, why that mindset that you didn't know? Because we all know, and that's my thing. Like I see it, like I told you, like I'll tell Henrock the whole time though. Aria's a beast. Like I don't think she realizes how much of a beast that she is, and I mean, we know talented people.
Yeah.
Especially, and I know you're a talented person. So my thing is like, when did you say to yourself, you know what? Yo, I can do this.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't think it was until I got in front of the camera. All these years I've been behind the camera. And I want to say in January 2019 or 2020, all the years, 2020, I was working with AACA, African American College Alliance. I've been working with them for years, doing pop-ups and doing all kinds of other partnership, opportunities and managing sponsorship and stuff like that. But I curated a pop-up series, and we had a location, a brick and mortar in Harlem. And, I invited everybody to come out. Everybody came out, bought a sweatshirt or bought some sweatpants or just came and hung out. We made it like a really fun environment for people. I got a bar and pulled the bar in, pulled in sponsorship, like had, Yave Tequila was one of the tequilas that came and, helped us out a lot. We tapped Diageo, Keenan and Kanan, sent over some product. There were so many opportunities to really, work some of those relationships. And while I was there, it was like the hub, for people who were just kind of hanging out and just wanted a place to just hang out on a Friday night. Like we were there, so might as well hang out with our friends, right? And invite our friends. So one of my friends who came through, Sunkist, started talking to me, and this was bona fide January of 2020 about doing a podcast. And, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. He was like, no. I really, really think that you would be great because this is me, this is my persona, and this is you. And you're a totally different person. You're fun, and you're very animated, and I think it'll work. And I was like, yeah, sure, you're right. So for a number of months, we just kind of talked at it and talked about it. And then after the issue my mom had, and when I went to Philly, when I was sitting there on the couch, and after I created the idea to do the house date, I called Sunkist and I said, oh, this was amid all of the nonsense that was happening with police brutality and all of the crazy stuff that was going on. The pandemic had just hit, and I called Sunkist and I said, I have a lot to say now. I don't think I had a lot to say before. I'm ready to be vocal. Let's go. Let's do it. So we did our first show, I want to say in like July. And I didn't realize until then, because I was very nervous. My first show, I'm not used to being in front of the camera. I was the person that was saying to my team, you need to be media trained. Let's get you in front of, the agency that's going to train you to talk to media and to talk to people and to be able to articulate what you need to say about a brand and so on and so forth, so you don't say the wrong thing. But I wasn't that person. I was not the person to be in front of the camera, or at least I thought. And after I watched myself on the first show, I was like, there you go.
I mean, like I said, I always knew it's the same thing. You know me, I'm the type of person that don't like to be in front of a camera. And then the same thing, like, I was going through my BS last year. I was going through struggling. And I think just doing this became therapeutic for me.
Yes.
My thing is like, I feel like I'm a creator and I love hearing positive stories. And when you hear positive stories, it just pushes you. And that's you all the way, because you've been around so many wonderful people, and it comes back all the time because you're wonderful. You have a story to tell, and people want to hear it.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
No, people want to hear your story. Don't sleep on that. Trust me. Yeah, you don't know how many people you inspire. Like, there's people that that know you that don't really. They're like, oh man, I know she does something. I know Aria. She's always around, but who is she?
Yeah, well, a lot of times when you talk to people and they tell you about an Aria story, it's usually with me pushing them to the limit and them not really remembering where they were the night before. So I'm not gonna lie about that, because I constantly find myself in rooms with people talking about the very first time they met Aria, or the time when Aria pushed them way beyond their limit and they just woke up 2 days later, like, what just happened? And I was one of those people that could always hold my liquor. So I was in the clubs until 4 or 5 o'clock, but then on my first call at 7 a.m. and working all day and then going back out into the club. So I showed the youngins how to do it and do it well.
So where do you see, as a media person, a brand marketer, where do you see this business going in the next couple of years?
Right now, I am working with a few great brands. I love the space that I'm in right now. I was able to reconnect with Keenan Towns because he actually created, and this was a few years ago, he told me about him, him leaving Diageo, ultimately leaving Diageo and creating his own brand. He formed a partnership with Snoop Dogg and created Indigo Gin, Exhibit A. Gotta do my,
Gotta do the plug, right?
Gotta do my plug. But he created this partnership with Snoop Dogg and created this gin that's actually amazing, which is what I'm sipping on right now. And I'm working on a few different initiatives with Keenan, but trying to create some energy behind the brand on just a regular consumer level, but then also on an elevated consumer level. You
gotta do a Paddle of the Sexes tour.
Oh yeah.
I'm throwing my shameless plug.
Bring that back, man. That was fun.
You know how many? So too many people ask me, Edgar, you gotta bring it back. We did it for 4 years. We raised $50K, but
wow. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's so amazing. Yeah, I mean, so working with Indigo, and then I'm also working with another brand that I can't mention right now, but you'll see it pretty soon. And both of them are kind of in this space where they're looking to target not the urban consumer, that's 21 to 35, which is what brands are always looking. They're always trying to get this guy that's just new and entering the category, and they don't really know what they want. But both brands are like, look, we want to step outside of that zone, and we want to take a different approach to marketing towards them. So, those two brands, and then I think social media has played such a major part in our lives over the past year and a half that it's not going anywhere. I would be surprised if Instagram just collapsed one day, because that's people's go-to. I work with an amazing group called the Problem Solvers, and we have a weekly Tuesday night room on Clubhouse that's led by MC Search, the legendary MC Search from Third Base. and some amazing people there. Dante Simpson, Leontine Brown, Mark Byers, and Paris Pullen, who's like my new road dog. Like he's like the youngest of our group, and he's so amazing with the world of social influencing and male grooming, and he's an amazing creative. So people like him are who are going to be designing the fabric that we are going to be weaving ourselves into for the next couple of decades, I would say. So just being a part of that conversation, being a part of that community, and really just staying on the cusp of what's next and what's new, continuing to be innovative, do great programming, and then continuing to honor my word and doing a great job with the people that are hiring me to work with them. I just really appreciate so many of my friends who've stepped up. And, Tamara Gardelis, who used to be my client at Seagram's Gin and Martell, she hired me earlier this year to run a research program where I worked with influencers on the east side of Chicago, which is one of the most interesting segments of the country because it's so diverse, and like a lot of brands go there to test their brand, the validity of their products. So I'm working with her, and it's the feeling that I got from people who I've worked with 10, 15, 20, and even 5 or 2 years ago, calling me and saying, hey, we want you to work on X, Y, and Z, and we want you to, lead this charge, or we want you to, figure out how to, solve this problem. That is the most fulfilling feeling in the world, to just know that you've done a great job and that people respect you for your work and they respect you for what you bring to the table. I'm never going to change. I'm going to always be that person that comes into the room happy and ready to go. I'm never going to be that person that comes into the room and brings everybody down. So if you want that person, go somewhere else. But I'm going to continue being me.
How important is it to always pay attention to what's going on and following the trends?
Well, paying attention to what's going on is critical. You can't just stay in your bubble. I laugh at artists who are like, I only listen to my music. It's like, well, how do you learn? How do you grow? So, it's just like planting. I've got a funny story. My mom, when she moved, she gave me like 20 plants. I probably have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. I killed them all. So it's just like putting a plant in the corner of the room and not talking to it, not feeding it, not watering it, not nurturing it. So it's really important to pay attention to trends, but it's even more important to be ahead of the trend. So to anticipate it. So do your work, do your homework, do your research, stay abreast of what's going on. If you aspire to be the person that's leading campaigns, find out what competitive brands are doing. Find out how they got to where they are. Find out what some of the pitfalls were so that you don't fall into those same holes. So you have to be aware. You have to continue to be innovative, and you have to continue to be ahead of the curve. And if that means creating your own trend and creating your own way, then that's what it's got to be.
2 final questions. What do you fear, and what motivates you?
I fear God. I fear God. I fear my mama. There's a lot of things that I won't do and say because of my mom. She raised me to be very independent. My mom was a very serious person when we were growing up. She's relaxed a lot because now that she has grandkids. But, I've always just been very afraid of her. But now I respect why I was afraid of her, because she was serious about what she had to do. She had a job to do. She had 3 kids, and she worked to put food on our table and to give us the things, the bare necessities, the things that we needed. So there was no time for her to joke and kiki and laugh. So I fear her. So God, my mama, that's the only thing I fear. What was the other question?
What motivates you? What motivates you every day?
What motivates me every day is my son. My son challenges me. He just turned 21 in March, and he's a very bright young man. So he keeps me on my toes. And then the fact that I have to set a good example for him. I have a lot of people that look up to me, that are around, like my nieces and my nephews, my godchildren. I had my nephew graduated with honors from Purdue last week. My goddaughter Dream graduated today with honors from Albany State University. I have so many other nieces and nephews that are doing such amazing things, and they're so bright, and they're challenging people who are my age, who are, just thinking that life is sweet. But then these guys are coming on your heels, and they're like, nah, you got to do better. You got to do better. So my sister challenges me, Valerie. She constantly makes me really think about what it is that I want to do and how I want to get there. And she always reminds me to keep God first. My friends, my girls, my circle, like, oh my God, Mia, Amber, Nicole, like, there's so many people, my cousin Dio, like, all these people challenge me on a regular basis. They challenge me to grow, and they nurture me, they definitely help. Marlo, like, there's so many of them in my group. Tamara, Kelly, like, I could go on for days, talking about it, like, and then, my circle, Keenan, Kanan, Chris Latimer, like that, those are my crew. That's my crew. William Johnson, like, I would be sitting in my house, not motivated to do much if I didn't have these positive forces. Ingrid Best in my corner, Dana Stewart, Maria Booth, Ebony Shears, like the smartest, most amazing people that I know. I just honestly couldn't imagine doing life without them.
I got a little "We love you" from Dave.
Oh, Dio, that's my cousin. That's my cousin. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, and I also look at what's happening in life, in real life. We're losing people, and it just makes it more important for you to really value the relationships that you've created. My girl Isla, Evelyn's Kitchen, she started her business, I want to say like 12 years ago. And I remember being in her kitchen with her rolling pudgies, and helping her to meet her first, orders. And, now 12 years later or so, she's still in her kitchen. She's got a staff that will live and die for her. She works so hard, and she works so smart that it really makes you sit back and say, you know what, I got to do better. I got to do better all the time.
So, like I said, you gave me your hour. Are we going to see your own show one day, media show, or Aria Wright show? Aria, you could be the next Oprah. I hope you know that. I'm just letting you know. I'm being truthful on that one. I mean,
free. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna say, you're making an impact every day. I think things that you touch usually turn to gold. Like I think the sky's the limit, and that's, I appreciate you giving me your time. I know you're a busy person, and I definitely wanted to get you on, and I've always wanted to hear the story, but I like when other people hear your story. I've heard some of it sometimes, but I like it. I love it that you gave me the whole, more.
Absolutely. And that, I mean, honestly, it's like my future is, it is what it is. It is what it's going to be. I believe it's ordained by God. I believe that He's leading my steps. And I have great people around me. Pat Alphonse, who has been an amazing, incredible support over the past two and a half years. You know, just really encouraging me and believing in me, and pushing me to be better and to do more, and then also pulling me back when I've done too much, because I have tendency to do too much. But I appreciate everybody for all of the wisdom and knowledge that they've imparted upon me, and I just really am excited about the future, whatever that may be. And I appreciate it.
If people want to follow Aria, they can go to Aria F. Wright. Or if they want to contact you, how can they?
They can contact me on across everything. So on Instagram, I'm Aria F. Wright. My email, ariafwright@gmail. You know, my name is on the bathroom wall with my phone number. So
she responds.
Like, seriously, nobody has ever said, "Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you." Literally everywhere. Like,
she'll respond. She'll give you one chance, but she'll respond.
Yeah. I mean, you can always find me. I'm always around, and I'm always 2 or 3 steps away from somebody that you know. So I'm easy.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, Edgar.
Don't hang up. All right.